My clients have raised over $1 billion in private capital, and that's on top of the multiple nine figures I've raised personally. In this video, I'm going to break down the exact four-step system that separates the pros who consistently raise capital from people who are always scrambling. Because here's the reality. Most operators do it backwards. They find the deal first, tie up a property, put up $50,000 or $100,000 in earnest money, and then the mad scramble to raise capital starts. But the pros, they don't play that game. They raise capital before they need it. They build systems that attract the right investors on autopilot. And when they show up to negotiate a deal, they're confident, not desperate, and they know they can close. Now, to do that, I created something called the Core 4 system. And to apply it, you'll be able to stop begging investors for attention and instead become the operator that they're chasing down to work with instead. So if that sounds good, let's dive in. This is your first step. I call it your unfair advantage. It's the reason investors choose you before they ever even look at a deal. Now, look, most operators think that their advantage is the deal itself, and they start with things like IRR, rent comps, market data. But you know what? The guy down the street is saying the exact same thing. And look, when two deals look the same, the only way to decide on which one is best is on the price or the promise that people are making. And that's really a commodity trap. Another way to think about this is your unfair advantage isn't the horse, i.e. the deal. It's the jockey, i.e. you. So how do you package that? Well, there's three pieces. Part one is your story. Be authentic. If you're a contractor, you can say, look, I've renovated over 100 kitchens, and I know where guys waste a ton of money and where budgets go to die. If you're potentially a former engineer, you can say, look, I've designed systems where failure wasn't an option. And that's actually how I approach underwriting. So I'm super conservative. If you've been a real estate agent for the last 20 years, you can say, listen, I've lived in this neighborhood and I've seen all the development and all the construction that's happened. And I'm actually the right person to understand where this market is going. Your story is uniquely you. It's your experiences. It's the thing nobody can take from you because you've lived that life, no one else. The second part is your why. So look, what drives you? It could be as simple as I'm focused on affordable housing because I've seen families struggle. I grew up in the system and I really hate how people are treated in workforce housing or Section 8 housing. Maybe your why is you want to be able to create generational wealth for your family and for your investors. Well, that's fine. The reason why I'm investing in apartment buildings or storage or short-term rentals is because I understand it and it's worked for me and my family, and I want to share those results with other people. And the third part to really honing in your unfair advantage is the proof or the results or effort that you've put in. Maybe you're earlier in your journey and you don't have the massive track record or results yet. Maybe you do. But if you're sitting there and you're like, look, Marcin, that's easy for you to say. You've been doing this for 20 years. Take it in another way. Show me the effort that you've put into a transaction. So for example, you could literally say, I've underwritten 27 properties in the last 90 days. I've toured 16 of those properties. Most of them are over 100 units. And I've really built out relationships with three key lenders in this marketplace. So there you go. That shows proof of effort. So when you combine those three things together, you could say, hey, my name's John Smith. I grew up in a home of real estate agents. I've always seen my mom and dad focusing on real estate. Early on, I realized that that was what I wanted to do, but I didn't really like the hustle of a realtor life because they were always selling houses, but we weren't really getting ahead financially. Whereas I looked at some of the clients that they were dealing with who were buying small apartment buildings and Section 8 housing, and that really appealed to me. So there you go. You're telling your story, you're edifying where you came from. And to tie that all together, you could say, and since watching my parents build their real estate business, I decided to go to school for finance so I could actually understand the underwriting side and the accounting side of the business. Since then, I've underwritten 600 properties, and actually we're under contract now today because of that. See, there you go. Even though maybe that example doesn't have the experience and the credibility directly yet, but they've been able to tell a pretty good story because there's proof there that you're serious, even if you actually don't have a track record yet, which is kind of the point. If you have a track record, that's fantastic. Lean into it. But still, your story and your why need to really frame everything out for your clients. Now, say you're somebody who's already super familiar with investments. You might say something like, well, this deal is a 15% IRR, which, by the way, guys, if you're projecting IRRs and things like this, make sure you're dealing with your lawyers and attorneys and make sure you have the right paperwork. But look, rather than lead in with the return, Why not say something like, look, I've been a contractor for the last 18 years, and I actually know exactly how to renovate properties cost effectively. I've saved my clients millions of dollars in change orders, and that's where my deals really hold water because ultimately, when I put a budget in place, I'm really confident in that budget. Whereas most operators are kind of going in blind. That could be your edge. That could be your unfair advantage. And you're sitting there, you're like, how do I frame this out? It might take you some time, but look, when you nail your unfair advantage, you're no longer just another operator pitching numbers. You're literally the person investors are betting on and beating a path down to your door to work with you because they've bought into you and your value. Now, the second step in this whole process is building out your investor pipeline. So, look, most operators actually chase the wrong investors or the wrong people in general. They end up pitching broke relatives or friends who are never going to invest because they see you as the guy that they play softball with. And look, that's not a pipeline, that's desperation. You want to have qualified investors, accredited individuals, family offices, and fund managers once you're ready for it. So let me give you some tactical steps on how to actually do this. Step one, the easiest and fastest way to start doing this is obviously networking events. So commit to one event per month and go prepared to these events with these three questions. So, what kind of investments are you focused on right now? What markets do you like best? What does a great operator look like to you? Networking events are the testing grounds of your ideas. Go to free events, go to paid events, but commit to going to events and go with a plan, go with a set of questions, introduce yourself, and do the market research. Figure out what people are saying because the assumptions that you have about your deal or your fund or your structure, well, why not just ask people what they're looking for before you start spending time, money, and energy on actually putting that together? The second hack to build a pipeline for investors is start hosting quarterly dinners or webinars. Now, big caveat here, make sure you keep this educational. It can't be a sales pitch. Literally, you can make it the top three mistakes investors make in multifamily. It could be how to reduce your tax burden by becoming a real estate investor or something along those ways. The idea of you being a center of influence where you're able to take the things that you know through your unfair advantage and actually lean into those things in the context of why you're hosting a webinar or why you're hosting an event does two things for you. One, it allows you to present yourself as the subject matter expert. And two, it makes you a center of influence within a community because it's not no small thing to get 10 or 100 people in a room. So automatically, if you're the host, either of a live event or a webinar, your credibility increases. The third way to drive leads is content. Look, LinkedIn is free. You can literally post on LinkedIn with insights. And it could be as simple as I toured 3 properties this week. Here's the number one underwriting mistake I saw. It doesn't have to be this high level 3 hour content conversation. You can literally be the reporter of your own life or the reporter of somebody else's activities. Maybe you see what's going on in politics and how it affects real estate. Maybe the Fed's doing something. Maybe lending is changing. Having an opinion and talking about it in the context of how your ideal avatar would respond is gold. The next piece of having a steady investor pipeline is creating a database and taking it seriously. So logging everybody into a CRM or even a spreadsheet before they had all these fancy programs that people use today. I used to have a spreadsheet with hundreds of investors and thousands of contacts that I had within my network, and I would track what they like, what they didn't like, things that were memorable, and most importantly, when was the last time I checked in? Another practical example tied back to your database is your follow-up game. I mean, listen, I'm surprised, like we consult on hundreds of client files that are real estate investors and operators, and it blows me away how liberal our clients are with their time with their investors. And what do I mean by that? Well, let me give you two examples. Would you rather have somebody connect with you once every 6 months for an hour? Or would you rather have that person check in with you once a month for maybe 5 minutes? I would pick the latter. Why? Well, because there probably isn't that much for us to talk about for 1 hour every 6 months, because just the idea of catching up is going to take most of the time. Whereas if we checked in every month for maybe 5 minutes, I would feel a lot more connected and informed by you. Yet most of you are doing the exact opposite. You talk to someone for a ton of time once, forget about them, and then check in with them 6 months or 12 months later. That's not consistent. It's not sustainable. And it's also not scalable for your business. Now, let me give you a tactical example. Let's assume you attend a local meetup and maybe you meet 5 people. Well, first of all, don't just add them to your LinkedIn and forget about them. You need to put them into your CRM and make a note. Like, for example, John, he's an accredited investor. He likes multifamily. He hates student housing, bad experience there. And then you have a note to follow up with John next week. Then next week comes, you have a reminder. Hey, John, thought of you when I saw this multifamily Phoenix update. I know you were talking about XYZ and I noticed ABC in the article. Just thought I'd share it with you. Hope you're doing great. Simple, really easy touch point specific to something you guys talked about that you guys have in common. Now, here's the trick. Do this 100 times, and then suddenly you're not chasing, you're filtering. The goal here is to create predictability because ultimately, once you create a proven, consistent process, guess what? You can delegate to somebody on your team. And if you don't have a team yet, that's fine. You do it, you perfect it, you scale it, you grow it until you can actually bring someone on to help you with the high value, low skill activities. Now, one more thing you want to track here is how many investors you're adding to your database every month, how many meetings you're having with those people, how many of those meetings are turning into a commitment, and what is your average commitment size. Now, check this out. When you know that, raising capital literally stops being this chaotic activity and literally just boils down to math. And math can be profitable. Here's your third step: convert and follow up. So, this is where posture matters. Because remember, you're not begging, you're qualifying. So here's how professionals run their meetings. They ask questions. They ask things like, what's your experience with private investments? What's worked well for you before? What hasn't? What are some of your goals over the next 3 to 5 years? See, this positions you as the expert and helps you filter. You think about when you go to meet with a potential lawyer or an accountant or some kind of a service provider. If they're running a real service-based business, chances are they have an intake form. Chances are that first meeting with you is to figure out what your goals are, what your priorities are, what your timelines are, what your expectations are, because their job is to make sure that you're somebody they can help. When you internalize that thought process into the context of your business, you're no longer seen as a salesperson or as a promoter. You're seen as somebody who prioritizes their time. And that's the difference. If when you meet with an investor, they say something like, well, I need monthly cash flow, but your deal doesn't pay for 2 years, don't pitch harder. Say, look, I mean, I totally get where you're at right now. The thing is, what we do probably isn't a fit for you, and here's why. That honesty frame and you explaining to them why it's not a good fit for them is actually one of the most powerful hacks and underrated hacks in this business because one of two things happen. Either one, the investor actually admits that what they said is a smokescreen and like, well, actually, I don't actually need da 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 da. I was just thinking da da da. And then you can have a real conversation. Or if they're like, hey, totally appreciate you saying it because I'm on a fixed income. Here's where I'm at right now. And that's cool because here's the secret. Conversion isn't about the first meeting in this business. It's all about the follow up. So most operators have one call here, not right now, and drop the ball and forget about the client. That's a big mistake. So the key is how do you stay in touch with that person in a way where you add value, maintain your status, and never become quote unquote a pest? So here's a tactical example. You meet with an investor week one, they tell you, you know what, Marson, this sounds great. I'm just not ready. Okay, great. You lean back, you let them do their thing. Week two, maybe you send them a market update that addresses some of the potential concerns they had about investing in your market or in your asset class or your strategy or whatever it is. Maybe a few weeks later, you check in and maybe you send them a quick Loom or a quick video and say, hey, I was just touring 4 properties this month. I know when I told you about ABC, well, here's what I learned about XYZ. And maybe a few weeks after that, you have a webinar that you're planning on doing. So you invite them to the webinar. The webinar is called 3 Mistakes Contractors Make When They're Building New Construction. You say, hey, John, I know we talked a few months ago about that last development we were doing. I know what timing wasn't good, but listen, I have this webinar. We're actually going to talk about what the biggest mistakes are in the world of development. And I thought, given your interest, that would be interesting to you. Did you want a link to that? And it's a really simple way of just checking in. And here's the thing, what you're signaling to the investor is that you're sticking around. And that is the biggest reason that prevents them from writing a check, especially if they just met you 3 months ago and they've never talked to you one on one. So remember, no usually means not yet. And you need to treat every investor as a real relationship, not a transaction. This isn't a deal where you sell them a house or sell them a car or sell them a package of something and then go away. The kind of relationships you're developing with your investors should last decades, not days. Now, the last piece, once you've finalized your unfair advantage, you've tied in being able to get in front of investors and being able to convert those investors into actual clients, is what I call speed and scale. Now, here's the trap here because most operators right now, when you talk to them, it's clear that they are their own system. Every call, every email, every follow up, lots of that stuff goes through them and they become the bottleneck. So, look, if you want to scale this business or any business, you need to create leverage. And there's really 3 levers that you can pull to be able to create leverage. The first one is automation. So, I'm talking about your CRM reminders, email onboarding sequences, all the things that lock into place once you press specific buttons in your business, or even better, have other people put those things into practice within your business. The second lever is delegation. So you can have an assistant or a virtual assistant for scheduling. There's AI tools you can use, updates, investor notes. There's all kinds of online tools that you can now delegate entire roles to various different tools that exist out there. And the third lever that you can pull is systems. Having standard playbooks for onboarding, reporting, follow ups, SOPs. Listen, especially in the age of AI and having virtual assistants and having leverage at such a low cost, the limitation that most of my clients I see going from a 7 to 8 or 8 to 9 figure business is standard operating procedures. The other things that you need to be able to pull, the other levers to really create leverage, are all ultimately tied back to this. Let's assume, for example, you've grown your business, maybe you spoke at a conference, a new investor funnel is really kicking off, and all of a sudden you have 10 new investors that want to get onboarded. And that's not normal for you. So imagine instead of having to manually onboard all of those investors and send intros, you had multiple automation systems and sequences working where they were sending the package to the investor, they were automating the follow up, they were sending them the relationship nurturing emails after to make them feel good about their decisions, all while you're actually out there looking for a new deal. That is the power of being able to systemize and automate the entire backside of your business. Every new prospect gets nurtured automatically. Here's another example. Let's assume you finally hire your first support staff and you hire a VA, let's just say even for 10 hours a week. They log your investor notes, they schedule your calls, they prep your materials. Suddenly you're free to focus on relationships and the strategy. And let's say during that free time, you build out a 5 step onboarding process for your investors with a welcome email, your scheduled intro call, you send them the market overview, they get added to the newsletter, and they're scheduled for their quarterly check in for you to have that quick check in so they feel good about what they've done with you and potentially introduce you to new investors. The cool thing is, every investor gets the same consistent professional experience. I can tell you, this is a small taste of how the pros raise 8, 9 figures and build big businesses. They don't grind harder. They literally multiply their time with leverage. So listen, those are the core four. Remember, part one is building your unfair advantage, which is packaging your story, your why, and your proof. The second piece that we talked about was building out your investor pipeline, where you fill it with qualified people, not just with whoever's nearby. And the third one is converting and following up. So it's not just about getting people in your pipeline. How do you convert and follow up and qualify people with posture and stay in touch? Because no often just means not yet. And then the fourth piece is speed and scale. It's about automating, delegating, and systemizing so that you're not the bottleneck in your business. So look, these are the principles that have helped my clients raise over $1 billion in capital on top of my multi 9 figure capital raises. So look, I threw a lot at you, and don't try to fix all of it overnight. Pick one area that you're weakest in and improve it this week. Don't try to fix everything at once. Just work on getting momentum. And if you do, you'll be ahead of 90% of operators who are still scrambling to try to figure out how to make sense of it all. So if you like this video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We've had a lot of people that watch my videos don't know that they're not subscribed. So make sure you just check and subscribe if you see value in this. Also, the best thing you could possibly do is if you know any capital raisers, fund managers, operators in the real estate or business space that are looking for this information, please make sure you share this with them. I really appreciate any of the introductions you guys make to this channel. We're putting in a lot of time and effort to make this channel grow. And I'm super appreciative of everybody that helps us get this message out there to the business owners and the entrepreneurs that really need to scale their business. I'll see you guys on the next one.